Hey, Tommy, Mr. Riggs here. I hope you're doing well, buddy. I want to thank you for all your hard work in figuring out the Google process. And I know it felt a little intimidating there at first, but once you do it once or twice, wherever you're at, from home or from school, it becomes second nature. And I promise by week 2, week 3 here, it will be second nature. So take heart, buddy. Also, this is your first video edit from me after I read your first essay on 9/11 here. So great job on it. We've got a few things we're going to talk about strength-wise and vulnerability. So let's just get to it, shall we? So first things first, this is not a bad font in general. It's very readable, but I'm just going to kind of tell you now, if you don't know already, you're going to want to grow the habit of writing in Times New Roman, which is just when you begin to write anything, before you write anything, get into the habit of going up to any kind of font drop down and finding Times New Roman. The reason I say this is because while in the work world, it's not quite as finicky. If you go to college, most majors, any professor is going to insist that you write in Times New Roman, and I really can't go into all the reasons why here, but just know that if you turn in anything in college that's not in Times New Roman, you're likely to get it back and or lose points immediately because of that. So just kind of letting you know now that that'll be an expectation for the rest of the semester, is writing in Times New Roman, again, just to help get you prepared for what's coming down the road later on. All right. We're going to spend a bulk of our time actually in this first paragraph. We're going to look at a few things down this way, but I think there were a few things up here that I really want to lean into that I think will allow you to really hone in what you're strong in down here. So first paragraph, let's look at this. September 11th, 2001 was a tragedy no one will forget, comma. Strength. This is good. This pulls the reader in. I want to know more. I want to know where we're headed, right? This is good. Just really quick, this comma here, whenever you have a full date that goes month, day, year, okay? Month, day, year. You did a great job with the first comma that goes after the day, but we actually need to wrap the year in commas. So you have one before, just after the day, and then a second one just after the year. So again, if that goes month, day, year, you need a comma just after the day and just after the year, okay? Now here's what I think happened, buddy. You have this great introductory clause, but then it kind of goes south a little bit, only because you do two things that are easy to do with an introductory paragraph. Now, just first remember, what's the job of a good introductory paragraph? Well, it's meant to give the reader a reason to be there, right? You want to hook them. You want to bring them in and provoke their curiosity somehow. And you've done that here already. But then you also want to kind of let them know in some helpful details, without giving away everything, where they're headed, right? So that's what the thesis is for, is you're going to provide an argument or a main idea that tells the reader where they're headed, and that's going to make them want to hang around for the whole essay to continue to learn more about why you think the way that you did, right? Up here, we really didn't have a thesis or a main idea, right? Now, down here, you begin to unpack it very well. We have airport security and airline security, right? But up here, you really don't make any statement that's going to help the reader know where they're going. So what I tried to do was take what you were trying to say and or had said, and I put it in this example for how to maybe cap off that sentence. So instead of the one that was initially provided, one example. So, and the reason that I say examples because I don't want you to copy this. I want you to come up with your own. But September 11th, 2001 was a tragedy no one will forget, and America has responded by making many needed changes. Specifically, here's your thesis, right? Specifically with airport security and airplane safety, right? Now the reader knows, okay, it was a tragedy, but we've made some changes, right? We want to learn about those changes specifically with these two. So, and then this last statement here, we shall be diving in and answering questions to learn about our improvements. Statements like this, I would highly recommend not making, only because they seem like they help the reader know where things are going, but it's kind of like you're grabbing the reader's hand and forcing them to walk with you when they know which direction to walk anyway. Does that make sense? So it's trust the reader a little bit more to know where things are going. And at the end of the day, this just kind of clobbers them over the head with something that they're going to assume about the essay. They're going to assume that you're going to dive in and answer any questions about these improvements, right? So just again, remember, a good introductory paragraph has a main idea or thesis, right? It's this controlling idea that gives the rest of your essay a reason to exist. But also it has to try to grab the reader and let them know a little bit of where you're going, okay? So those are a few things that I would recommend you think through, work on, and just kind of lean into it as you write more essays, okay? When we get down here into, I'm going to check my time here real fast. When we get down here into the body, like I said, great job using the block method, and you do a great job of comparing certain things. It's inside your content are a few things that I would caution. Again, phrases like this: let us begin investigating into the security of 2001. Go ahead and try to kick the habit of trying to, again, grab the reader by the hand and walking them up to it. Just go there. Like, you can absolutely cut this entire statement here and just begin with first of all. Does that make sense? And then look at this first sentence up here. I'm not going to explain all of it, but I think you'll see why I made some of the recommendations that I did to try to help get the reader ready. But also, you have this, let's say we were going to keep this, right? Let us begin part, which I'm going to actually recommend you get rid of entirely. You actually have a whole sentence in front of it, right? So it's confusing to the reader that you've actually begun, right? And then you say, let us begin. So if you were going to say something like that, I would put it first. But again, you're getting rid of it entirely. So, but then you do it here again, right? First of all, if you're getting, what I would do is I would start here first, okay? Start with the problems and then begin to wrap other things in. But we'll talk more about that later. One other little note. If you think about what you said here initially, during 2001, the airports were overseen. Two things I'm going to recommend. One, because you're trying to talk about all airports, you don't need the, right? When you say the airports, you're talking about specific airports, but it sounds like you mean all airports. Also, you probably would want to say in 2001 and not during 2001. You're not lying by saying during 2001, but it makes it sound like it was only in 2001 that airports were overseen by private companies. So that's a few things for in there. All right, I'm going to finish this off here soon, buddy. Secondly, down here, few notes here. I would make sure you don't make these sweeping statements that you don't mean to make, right? So the air was more dangerous. If you really think about what that actually means, you're talking about the air, but what you mean to say is flight, right? Being on a plane. So make sure you find a way to clarify that for the reader, okay? So you can say things like, back in 2001, flying was more dangerous, right? And again, we have one of these kind of hit you over the head statements that we don't need for the reasons you see here. You can just get rid of that and let the reader get to what you mean right away, okay? Statements like the security guards would wander around, I would just kind of be careful of making a big sweeping statement because it may be true that some security guards didn't do their job, but this makes it sound like every security guard was not doing their job, and we don't want to say that, right? And then one last little comment here. Avoid second-person pronouns in essays. When you say things like, in the air, the cockpit is always closed and locked. You are scanned, watched, and checked when inside the airport. Few other things to work on here, but the biggest one is we're not telling the reader what it was like for them, right? We're actually just explaining, we're providing information, and so we need to stick with what's called a third person pronoun. So that's like they, they are, their, etc. Or just use common nouns like passengers. Passengers are scanned, watched, and checked. Okay. So that's all communicated down here. I want to make sure that you feel good about this overall essay because it was good. I just think if you were to work on what happens in your introductory paragraph and be a little bit more mindful of some of these bigger statements you're making, I think you're going to see your essays just increase with strength, buddy. So great job, and I'll see you on Tuesday.